Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Hello.
So we're very interested in what you're doing at Syfy, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role? You're SVP over there at Syfy.
Correct.
And, it's been a while coming. You came in, I think, by managing their website presence on Syfy Digital, correct?
So I sort of started my career here as an art director, a creative director for digital at Syfy quite a while back, and that's sort of my background is design. So, I came here nearly 14 years ago, and so at the time, this was a very different world. There was no streaming video. There was there was no YouTube. There was no, it was a more quaint time in sort of TV website world. So. Over the years, my role sort of evolved. I built out at the time, what we were calling our multimedia department. It was basically producing sort of low-cost video for the web. So we were doing things around our shows. I think at the time it was mostly around Battlestar Galactica, and some of our other original programming at the time. And then my purview sort of expanded around mobile as mobile and smartphones started to take off. We got into apps around the same time a lot of other people did. And then the mobile sort of morphed into what we were calling our emerging platforms group, which is basically, that was sort of the genesis of what Syfy Labs is now. Mm-hmm. And then eventually the technology team here was under me, and it's been a couple of years now with the entire team. So I used to be able to joke that I was responsible for everything but the website here, because it was basically all the other screens I was dealing with. But now the website is part of it as well.
All right, so why don't you tell us more about what you're specifically leading right now? I know you're involved in the lab, the tech lab, and
Correct.
There's a project with VR. There's all kinds of amazing projects that you're spearheading. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your priorities are?
Sure. So we announced the formation of Syfy Labs at CES back in January, and a lot of it was really sort of codifying a lot of work that we've been doing over the years. Everything from we got into podcasting really early, but we wanted to use it in a way that wasn't just sort of distributing effectively a radio show or something. And so what we did, the first podcast we launched was during actually season 1 of Battlestar. And we had Ron Moore, who's one of the executive producers of Battlestar, record DVD-style episodic commentary that we distributed via podcast. So
extras.
Exactly. So, but you could actually watch the show that night, download the podcast, and then rewatch it with live commentary. So we were actually doing it, synced up, and it seems really cute now, but this was pre-phones or pre-iPhone, so it was all done on iPod. And we basically put tones in to pause for a commercial break, and then you could, unpause once the show started back up. But the fun part about that was those actually ended up on the DVDs eventually. So those sort of became the DVD commentary as we were doing them. But what we learned by doing that was, at the time we had pretty active forums on syfy.com, and fans started, they'd listen to the podcast, they'd start asking Ron questions via the forums, and he would start to answer them. So we created this sort of full circle relationship with the fans very, very quickly and sort of organically through this means. So that was sort of the beginning of us looking at technologies that were emerging or brand new, and looking at ways to use them in sort of surprising or sort of non-standard ways to enhance the storytelling process.
Let me I want to interrupt you before you go on to all those other things, because I have a Battlestar Galactica story for you, which I think you'll find interesting. And what was the year that you were doing those podcasts again?
Oh gosh, to think back of first year of Battlestar was probably
2001,
4 or 5. Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard of the American Film Institute Enhanced TV Lab?
Yes. Oh, did you work on the?
Were you at those sessions when?
No, I was never at any of the sessions, but I did some work on that here in New York, and I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman.
Dale
Yes.
Harigstad.
Yes.
Who's somebody in our community, and he was on the Minority Report team that did all the Tom Cruise graphics.
Yep.
And he developed way ahead of its time. Remember that
That's
3D visualization of Battlestar where you could navigate it's ready now for the VR universe, right? To
absolutely.
some extent, it's actually it was graphics, but right now VR is 360. But the point is that it was completely immersive with Battlestar,
Yep,
and it was so exciting at the time. And
absolutely.
I think we knew it was ahead of its time, but we didn't know how far it still
Hmm.
was.
Well, and that's what's a lot of fun about that stuff. That the our audience sort of expects that sort of thing, and it's we I always joke that it's sort of this double-edged sword of um, we are lucky enough that we have fans that tend to be early adopters of new technologies, and we can try out things with them sooner than you might if we were at a other network. But the other side of that is they expect a lot more out of us, just sort of baseline. So even to just sort of placate our fans takes a little more than the average network. But it's a fun challenge.
You guys are completely in a position to take advantage of all these amazing developments, and that's why I was excited to interview you, because I think you really are starting to do that. And so why don't you, how about that for a transitional statement? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the new lab over there and the types of technologies you're going to be able to use to enhance all of the regular programming experiences?
Sure.
Please.
So one of the first sort of labs, one of the things that we showed off at CES was actually something we launched almost 2 years ago now, which is a partnership with Philips.
Hugh?
Yeah, exactly. So they're a Dutch consumer electronics company. They have a line of products called the Hue that are internet-connected light bulbs that you can not only change the intensity of, you can actually change the color, via a smartphone app or web interface.
Yeah.
And we were really sort of inspired by these products and
I
said,
wish I could afford them throughout my whole house.
yeah,
Well,
me too. They apparently they last forever, but they are, yeah, I mean, they're still a little pricey as far as just a light bulb goes, but the people who have them really love them, love to show them off, love to do cool things with them. And so we already had a product called Syfy Sync that was a second screen app that was a companion viewing app. And
Did you develop that in-house, or did you have a third party that did that?
we actually, this is pretty typical for us. We sort of shepherded the whole thing and worked with a multiple sort of outside vendors. So there, one vendor is powering the audio content recognition in it. One is powering another part of it. So it's a long way of saying yes, we go out of house, but it's all really sort of managed internally.
I'll have to go back and look at my database to see if all that's tracked. But go ahead. You can search for that on itvt.com if you want to find that out. We probably reported on it. All right, go ahead.
So we had this app that allowed us to send content in sync with what you were watching. It used ACR, audio content recognition, so it was listening to the audio program of the show you were listening to or watching, and was able to sync up events. And we were delivering deleted scenes and fun facts and director commentary and things. So once we started looking at the Hue product, we said, look, we could actually do synchronized lighting tracks to our programming. And so we contacted Philips, worked with them for a few furious months to sort of build this integration into our app, and we launched it for Sharknado 2
That's
2 summers ago.
Right.
And the response was really great.
Weren't you working with Watch With?
Yes, so WatchWith is one of the partners there. So yeah, we've worked with WatchWith since the beginning of Sync. And so the fun thing about Sharknado is it's so over the top and such a such a fun experience that we were able to do some really cool stuff where we had, when there was a storm on screen, you were getting lightning in your living room. Every time someone got killed, all the lights went blood red. So it was fun, and it taught us a lot. And then we continued that for a full season of a show for the first time with 12 Monkeys. So the first season of 12 Monkeys was our first series that we did that with, and it presented some challenges because now we're working with a more somber scripted show, and we don't want to take people out of the experience. And so a lot of that was really looking at making sure we were matching the tone of the show, but also, the cool thing about the lighting tracks that we do is that we aren't doing this algorithmically or analyzing the colors on the screen the way some of these things work. We actually have someone sitting down, screening the episode, and building a light track. So they're effectively scoring the episode with sound or with light. So what that gets us is it becomes just another part of the narrative there. So in this, we realized that we were able to use lighting cues in the same way that a soundtrack does, where you start to get music that starts to foreshadow something coming up, and we can do the same with the lights. And so that was extremely well received, and we saw, we got a lot of really good response there. We had people tweeting, their living rooms and their lights all set up by their TV. So we've been able to continue that with other series. We did that for Expanse season 1. We're about to launch it for season 2 of 12 Monkeys, and of course Sharknado.
I better go get a Hue lamp thing, try it out. Okay.
So
at least one. How many do you need to have to be really effective, do you think?
It's you could do it with even one, but I think that I would recommend getting Philips has a starter kit it's got the bridge and 3 lights, and that'll definitely get you going.
Okay. All right. I saw that at Best Buy. I saw it. I looked at it. I stood there.
Beware, you will be buying more bulbs once you get in there. It's a total gateway drug.
Light crack light.
Yes.
Okay.
So and speaking of gateway drugs, so we so on the VR front, over the summer we launched our first VR project around the Expanse. So we did this at San Diego Comic-Con in July, and we had a huge presence there on the ground for the Expanse. We took over a cafe there that Syfy sort of owned for the past few Comic-Cons, and what we did was
you guys could do that commercially. I could totally see Syfy cafes around the world. There's Borderlands Cafe here in San Francisco, which is very popular.
Mm-hmm. I will have to talk to our marketing team. So
they don't do an elaborate. It's not like there's a lot of overhead. It's just coffee, books, some occasional events, and quirkiness, but nothing immersive.
Good.
Anyway, go on. Side topic. Go ahead.
So. We were the thing about the Expanse was we were very excited about it because this is our big return to space. It was a larger budget show than we'd had for quite some time, and the visuals were unbelievable. And the fact that this is based on a series of books that had a pretty large fan base, and none of these people had ever seen any of this stuff visualized except for on maybe the covers. And we were really excited about how great the show looked. And what we did was we said, look, wouldn't it be incredible if we could provide people a first look at some of these ships in 3D VR? And so we worked directly with the show's visual effects supervisor, a guy named Bob Monroe, who's amazing, and worked with them to get all of the original assets that they were using in the show, and then partnered with a company called Digital Domain to build these ships out in VR for us. And so we launched at San Diego Comic-Con. We did a giveaway we gave out 13,000 pieces of Google Cardboard. So we launched our first experience then, and then we used that app as sort of a direct pipeline into our fans to be able to deliver more experiences. And we did a second experience closer to premiere in October at New York Comic-Con, and that was extremely well received. And cardboard is really fun because it's one of these things, and we were just talking to some folks from Google yesterday about this, and I don't know, have you played with Google Cardboard at all?
Yeah. I mean, I try to play with as many of the devices as I can.
Yeah, and I think that, and even Google says this, that cardboard delivers so well because the expectations are so low. You're looking at this piece of cardboard with a couple of plastic lenses in it, and when you see a really good cardboard experience, it is kind of amazing what you're pulling off with just the phone you keep in your pocket and a little bit of cardboard. So.
I went to Cyber Arts in the early 90s in Pasadena, and this one guy had a helmet on. It was an art gallery. He had a helmet on. He had a ViewMaster. He'd scratched the film of the image on those circular ViewMaster slides, and they were in 3D, so he did something artistic away from the original image. He had the plate of the football helmet with peanut butter and then Vaseline in the afternoons, and then he had a Walkman on, because this is early days. He had a Walkman on with earphones, so you had total synesthesia VR kind of 3D experience, all low tech.
Wow. And so where'd the Vaseline and the peanut butter come into
It's
this?
synesthesia, it's the smell too. It's the audio, the smell, the visuals, it's everything.
All right.
But he was
Well,
making fun of the early days of the VR business, which was at that event. And
got it.
I was there. And then, but that was very low tech. And of course, Viewmaster is playing in that world now. But
Yeah, absolutely.
But cardboard, go ahead. I just
Yeah.
inserted a little story.
No, no. So this was really, sort of our first step into this space. And, like I said, we love the fact that we were letting people experience the show in a way that they couldn't even do on their television, and to really be able to sort of float in space and look at all of this in 3D. And so in January, with the launch of Syfy Labs, we...
And can you still download these apps right now?
Absolutely, yep. So they're available for iOS and Android. It's the Expanse VR app.
Okay. I better go get my cardboard. Yeah.
And we are already starting to talk about season 2 content for the Expanse. So that's that's definitely
How many people are downloading these apps?
There will be more. I'd have to look at current numbers. It's not massive, but we're definitely looking in tens of thousands. And the interesting thing about VR right now, and this is sort of the challenge, is first off, you can't just watch VR, or at least 3D VR, on your phone or on your computer. You need some sort of headset, whether it's cardboard, whether it's a Samsung Gear VR, or if you want to get higher end, you start looking at Oculus or HTC Vive. So you already have that sort of barrier there, where it's someone needs basically a peripheral to be able to do this, and the reality is there aren't a ton of those out there. Samsung is definitely making some serious efforts to get more of those in people's hands, and in fact, they just announced right now, I think with pre-orders for the Galaxy S7, it comes with a free Gear VR headset. So I think that we're going to start to see a lot more of those out there.
I'm seeing some people make partnerships with Google Cardboard, but create plastic cases and things like that. There's more of those that are emerging.
Yeah, and you can definitely do sort of branded or custom cardboard. And in fact, the cardboard we did for Comic-Con was branded. I mean, it wasn't like a Viewmaster, but it was it had Expanse branding on it. So, but the cool thing about the Gear VR headset is the experience. Although you're still looking at your phone screen, it's utilizing some extra processors to track head movement. And the overall experience is a lot smoother and a lot more fluid. So we launched the Expanse app for Gear VR in January at CES, and so that's available now. If you have a Gear VR headset, you can download that in the Oculus store. So it's sort of to come full circle with this whole thing, that we sort of look at cardboard right now as a bit of a gateway drug, because I think that's once people sort of see that, they're interested in higher quality experiences. And I think it's going to be an interesting year as we see more headsets entering the space, because it's right now you either have cardboard or you've got Oculus or something that requires a pretty beefy gaming PC and a $400 to $600 investment in the actual headset hardware.
Samsung, yeah. You've got a 3D app on your website that where you can visit various parts of the story. How does that relate to the VR app?
So that was done for the Expanse, and it is. I mean, to be honest, it's not really related at all. I mean, it is a 3D interface, but it's not in 3 dimensions. I mean, it's rendered in 3D, but you can explore it. And in fact, we've been looking at, because there are now some newer web technologies that are allowing you, it's called A-Frame, that are allowing you to do cardboard enabled websites. So that's another one of the hurdles with VR right now, is you have to create an app to be able to distribute it with, because it's a special type of video. Although since we did that, Google now supports 360 videos. So I'm sorry, YouTube. So the YouTube app now supports 360 video. You can actually use cardboard with it on Android, and iOS support for that is coming soon. So in a lot of ways, I think that's going to open things up for content creators like us, because it's not always sort of the best way to distribute something is to make someone download and install an app, and I think that we generally try to avoid doing that for something that doesn't absolutely need it. We generally don't do apps unless it's adding a bit of functionality that you couldn't do otherwise. So as things like YouTube's 360 and 3D VR video player improves, and as we start looking at these web technologies that can work with cardboard, you may see more web-based VR offerings coming from us.
So what do you think about the difference between a 3D VR environment versus a 360 video environment? Because it's two different things. The emergent VR business has conflated the original intention of VR, which was graphics only. So tell me what you think about this, and which format perhaps you think that Syfy will embrace more. Tell me a little bit about.
Yeah. It's funny because this is a topic that comes up all the time, and I think that even across the industry, there isn't a whole lot of
awareness.
Well,
historical awareness.
Well, but I think also even everybody's calling, like, people are throwing around the term VR in for things that may or may not be. Like, personally, I don't consider a 2D 360 video VR. But Facebook is referring to that as VR right now. So I think that you're seeing there's some confusion both on the content creator side and on the consumer side with this stuff. So our feeling is that we're going to call things 360 video unless it's 3D. And I think, look, 360 videos are very cool. I think that they provide a pretty immersive experience compared to just a regular video. But I do think once you get it into 3D, it's a different story altogether. So I mean, that's sort of the way we look at it. But I think you're going to see the VR term attached to all sorts of things that may not technically qualify as VR.
Okay, well, thanks for articulating that, because I completely see the early days of VR with the big head-mounted displays and augmented reality over here interacting with 360 video, and they're calling all of this VR. So it's all very confusing, I think, for not only people in our industry but the consumers themselves. So
yeah, and I think when you look at it from like someone like Facebook, they're really about, look, Facebook started, people were just sharing status updates via text, and then it became photos were huge, and then video, and I think that they're seeing 360 video as the next thing. And I think until you have consumer devices like the little Ricoh Theta 360 video recorder, until you see those sorts of devices that can do actual 3D VR, I think that's sort of what you're going to see, particularly on Facebook. But I think at the end of the day, for people like us who are creating this sort of content, we don't have those sorts of restrictions of like, oh well, what can a consumer device shoot? Because we're not really working in that field right now.
So it sounds to me like that.
Oh, Tracy, we're almost done. I got to get Matthew on to his next meeting. Oh.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like this is fantastic stuff. I feel like you're really doing what the audience needs and wants. They're the early adopters. I know this is about building loyalty and maybe time spent viewing right inside the worlds that you're creating. But how high is this on the level of priorities in terms of sinking real money into doing all these projects? Are these experiments, in other words, or is there a monetization strategy? Do you think this is, going to be an important strategy going forward for Syfy, or is this about just strengthening the loyalty of your viewers?
No, that's a great question. Look, I think that there's a few things here. One is that we are not looking at this, and this was one of the reasons we brought what we did to CES. So we were showing off our Gear VR app, we were showing off our Hue lighting integration, we were showing off our 3D printing
which we didn't even talk with. Yeah, we didn't talk to you about that. Yeah.
And then we also showed off the Expanse, the interactive website that you were talking about with the 3D interface. And are really adamant about, this is not sort of an R&D lab. We are making things that we ship. There's nothing, we don't really have the luxury of being able to sort of noodle around with these technologies. So we have to be very strategic about what we pick, because what we set out to do, we are going to deliver on. And that was the great thing about what we were showing at CES, that you could literally go home and do any of that stuff that day. So we're really looking at it as an extension of sort of what we've been doing to support our shows all along. And back to sort of how we fund this or what drives this, we really see this as, look, not only is it a way to engage with our fans at a brand level for the 6 days and 23 hours a week that they aren't watching one of those shows, but also we see it as a unique way to get advertisers in the door, because I think, particularly in digital, you never have an advertiser coming to you and saying, hey, I want you to do for us exactly what you did for that other brand. It's always, we want you to do something we've never ever seen before. And we see Labs as a unique way of being able to do that, because we have a track record of delivering on those sorts of experiences, and a team of people here who just have this sort of in their DNA and live and breathe this stuff.
All right, well, sounds good. I have so many more questions, but I'm looking forward to the day when you are open-minded to third-party, independent sci-fi creators out there contributing to all of these experiences.